I've been on social media for about 3 years now talking about my marriage to my Mormon returned missionary husband, which about 22 years in, I found out that he had a double life and was cheating on me with teenage girls. And then our divorce completely destroyed my life. I lost everything and became homeless. And as I share these details, I do want to maybe scare, somewhere on the spectrum between scare and wake other women up to the possibilities of the damage your intimate partner can cause in your life. But I don't want to scare people to the point that you don't have relationships anymore. So it always breaks my heart just a little bit when I get comments like this, that like I've decided not to even date or be in a relationship because I just can't trust that person not to ruin my life. And this is why, while I absolutely support the 4B movement in Korea, because they have a very different social structure, because they are one of the highest intimate partner homicide nations in the entire world, and because they need major boundaries for major change, I don't really get behind that same thing here in America. Specifically, not dating, not getting married, not having sex, and not having children. I believe that every human being has the right to have a partner. My life would not be the same without my partner. I love Kevin. Like anyone, I love Kevin so much. I hate to talk about it so much because I am supposed to be a feminist channel, but feminists, you guys, believe in love. Feminists believe in relationship. Unfortunately, often when we have a problem, we tend to go to the other end of the pendulum swing to solve the problem. So the problem is women's lives have been destroyed by the patriarchy, and we've had, childhood poverty and single moms and domestic violence, and the greatest risk of unaliving to pregnant women is their romantic partners. We have all of these problems over here. And so what we tend to do is like swing over here and say, well, then we just can't get married, we can't date, we can't do anything. But somewhere in the middle, I believe in a middle ground where we can engage with men, where we can have relationships, where we can still have romantic partners and life partners, but do it safely. I was recently on the Tamron Hall show, and I talked about, I just don't want any women to get in the car without their seatbelts on. So don't do this. Don't be over here. Don't do what I did. Somewhere in between, and let's talk about that. So first up, I want to start off with what over here is, what I did, and what so many of us do. I met my husband when I was 19 years old. We were married at 20. I was the typical Mormon trad wife. I had religious doctrine that taught me that Heavenly Father wanted me to be with my husband, not just until death do us part, but for time and all of eternity. So divorce wasn't an option. My own happiness was secondary to my temple covenants and that marriage being eternal. Mormons are next level, so I realized that not everybody has this, but I had actually made an oath on my life in the Mormon temple that I would obey my husband throughout my life. So romantic. And other real foundational ideologies like leave and cleave, like my family tribe was no longer my family tribe. The two of us were the most important unit in my life, which actually shaped my behaviors. There were times that I skipped family birthday parties, getting together with friends, and other things that were really important to me, staying connected to my extended tribe, because my husband was supposed to come first. So we'd go out on a date or sit at home and watch TV instead. And the whole we twain shall become one flesh thing, to me, that meant that every part of our lives was supposed to be blended and then super glued together. And that meant our finances, that meant our home, that meant that everything that was mine was his, and that everything that was his was mine. The very breath in my body, my very heartbeat, all of the money in my bank account, my truck, everything was his. When Jake and I got married, I don't know how to even say this without it making it seem like I picked a bad person, but he didn't really have a good career ahead of him. He had just come home from his Mormon mission, so he had given up that 2 years to serve the Lord. He had graduated from junior college with a fire safety degree, but then he was unable to get a job with the fire department. So he did eventually get a sales job, but he didn't really have something in his future that seemed like it was going to carry our family through our whole entire lives. I heard of an opportunity to buy a windshield business, and I still had a lot of money in the bank that I had intended to go back to college with, but I had dropped out of college to get married. Jake had made it super clear that I didn't need an education. I was just supposed to be a mom, and I was a Butker woman. So I took all of the last of that savings out of my college account and a little bit of money that we had, and we purchased the business. The first couple years I worked for the business too. All of our earnings went into our combined bank account, but pretty soon I had babies, and my Mormon stake president asked me to step out of being part of our business so that I could stay at home with my kids, because that's what Heavenly Father commanded me to do. Now, I realize that you may not have any of these religious factors, but a lot of women step out of their careers or never have a career, don't have their educations before they get married, for just other reasons. There are other circumstances. Yours doesn't have to be religious like mine was. But at that point, I was completely fine with we twain are one flesh. And even though I'm not working the business anymore for pay, I continued to support that business and to support my husband in all of our business ventures for the next 24 years without my name being on anything. I would actually go into the office and work. I would go out and go to chambers of commerce meetings and BNI groups and do sales calls. And I didn't even have a bank account of my own. I didn't have a bank account. That was fine. We were one flesh. He was my husband. And the Mormon Family Proclamation said that I was supposed to nurture the children and he was supposed to go out and provide for our family. And that's what we were doing. We were obeying God's command. He loved me. How could that ever possibly turn out wrong? I already told you the punchline in the beginning, though. It turned out wrong when I found out that he had been cheating on me and he had a double life and was basically destroying our finances. Had also given me multiple STDs and put me at risk of HIV. A couple of his girls were HIV positive. A couple of his girls were Hep C positive. So my whole life came crashing down, and I was so entangled with my husband that there was nothing that I could do. I had really entrapped myself in this situation, so I couldn't get out, and I'm still suffering from the results today, which is why I came up with the West 4Bs. And I know this is really controversial. People say you can't modify the 4Bs. I have absolute respect for the Korean 4Bs, but I think that in America we maybe need these modifications. No marriage before age 25 across the board, not ever. No children before you have completed college and are established in a career, not ever, not for any reason. No assumed domestic labor and childcare on the wife's part. If me and my partner want to have children together, then we're going to figure out who's going to work like Monday through Thursday and who's going to work Wednesday through Sunday, and we're going to alternate childcare. We're going to be saving up for that childcare. We're going to do whatever it takes to preserve both of our financial income and retirement and benefits, etc. It should be equal. And then this is an obvious one: no financial dependence on a man. So after my divorce, my followers who hear my story are like, how could you ever trust again? How could you be in a relationship again? Because I've done things very differently this time. So I am happily blended. We are partnered, but we are not married. So here's how Kevin and I keep our lives separate and how I live this out in my own daily. We are filed as domestic partners, which in the state of Arizona means that should our relationship crumble, we don't have to pay for divorce attorneys. There's no big filing fee. We don't have to go to a mediator. We don't have to do any of that. We just fill out a piece of paperwork, turn it into the court, and we have already designated what's mine and what's his. I have almost nothing, so it works out great. We have 3 separate bank accounts. I think that this is one of the most important things, that if I had done this differently, my life would have been completely different. There's a his, mine, and ours. The ours, we put money in there for mutual bills like rent and car payments and groceries and things like that. But then I have a checking account that's designated as just mine, and it's only mine. My money goes in there. He cannot touch it. He has his own that he pays for things for his kids, child support, things like that goes into that account. We can see each other's accounts, so I know that he's not doing anything fishy over there. And he can see mine, so he knows that I'm like on the up and up. But we can neither access or in any way touch each other's account. We don't have any traditional gendered responsibilities within our family. Kevin's actually a better mom than I am. So he does a lot of like the interpersonal relationships and discipline and things like that with all of our kids in our blended family. And I do some of the cooking because I'm a nutritionist and I enjoy cooking. But if I'm in the kitchen cooking, he's in there cleaning up. And we both prioritize our individual time. So I support him in doing things with friends outside of our relationship, which is actually, by the way, how he ruptured his Achilles, because I signed him up for softball. So if something happens to Heaven or something happens to our relationship, I will be heartbroken, but my life won't be destroyed. And that's your goal.